Construction industry leaders are warning tightening immigration rules on overseas workers could hit the government's house building targets. To remind you, Labour has pledged to build 1.5 million homes over the course of this parliament over the next 5 years. So let's speak to Rico Wojtulewicz, who is from the National Federation of Builders. Hello, Rico.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just in terms of context, can we get a bit of context to where we are at the moment before we get on to what we're talking about from the government? How short of labourers are we currently, and why are we seeing that situation?
Well, we're short of specific trades doing specific jobs, so steel fixing, say, if you want to build taller buildings. Okay, we do have a bricklayer issue. Site managers, we have very few of them. We've got a new building safety regime. We don't have a lot of building control officers, and they come from experienced workers. So part of the problem is that we don't have enough starters, but also we don't have enough really experienced workers, and that experience really counts in the construction industry. And we're here because every government tinkers with immigration and think it's a good strategy to kind of go up and down, but none of them tackle the underlying problem, which is unless you have companies that can afford to train and ultimately retain workers, that's no good for the companies, it's no good for the learners and apprentices. So that's the thing that needs to be solved. Make sure that people that train and retain, your small and regional companies, they win more work.
Is that starting to happen? Sorry, I know we'll get on to what your concerns are, but is that starting to happen under this government? Because they have been, I suppose, on the front foot when it comes to housing, haven't they? And I remember speaking to government ministers and posing exactly some of these issues to them about, post-Brexit, a lot of builders and labourers left the country. A lot of people have retired as well, haven't they? And they've said, we're making it easier to train. We're making more apprenticeships, all of those kind of things. Is it happening?
They're putting loads of money into apprenticeships, but if you can't afford to take someone on, say it takes, for example, it takes 2 to 3 years to get a planning application through for a site of, say, £150,000. So if you're a small business, maybe you building just 30 homes in the year, and you used to have 80 people working for you. What do you pay them out of? If it takes 2 to 3 years to get your planning application across the line, you can't. So you start to lose staff. And if you're losing experienced members of staff, you're not going to train anyone else. And because small and medium-sized companies train 73% of construction apprentices, unless they actually can win work and it's not unaffordable, you can't fix the capacity issue. We trained more bricklayers and carpenters in the 80s when SMEs, small and medium-sized companies, built 40% of homes than we do entire construction apprentices today.
Right. Okay. So we're not
for SMEs.
Okay. So we're not doing enough on that side, even though the government will argue they're putting in plenty of money to try and rectify the situation. So therefore, if we to try and meet this 1.5 million homes within the next 5 years, which everyone has always said, the government themselves has said it's a tall order, haven't they? But they want a challenge and all of that. Yep. You're going to need overseas workers, right, to get there. So what have you seen from these reforms that you think will impact upon that specifically? Are we talking about the language requirements that they announced today? Is that the biggest hurdle?
I think look, that's a hurdle, but I think the biggest challenge is going to end up being the fact that you have to have a degree equivalent qualification, because the UK seems to think that people with degrees are the top of the chain, when the reality is being skilled should be the most important factor, not the equivalency of if you've got a degree or not. I think that might end up a real challenge.
Do you think that will happen though? Because I'm looking here, I've got under the proposal, skilled worker visas will require a university degree, but with construction deemed a critical sector, it is reportedly set to remain subject to the current point system and exempt from the degree requirement. And I mean, look, we've talked about other issues today where it's still pretty grey, but it does look like that's a bit up in the air, to be honest.
I hope that, that's one of the reasons we bring it up, so that they realise that actually they can't do it that way. But there's another thing they've got to understand, is that 49% of the industry are self-employed. So currently that points-based system doesn't work for your self-employed people. So part of that is because of the way the system works. The big builders build everything and they subcontract, whereas the smaller companies kind of use the same supply chain or they directly employ. But unless they have a kind of a change to that element, so that if you're a self-employed person, you can come and do the work in the UK, then that's not going to make things easier. But it doesn't fix the underlying issue that we just got to train more people in the UK.
Yeah, understood.
And unless we're just going to be in this crazy cycle where, let's be honest, it is a political football, and every party comes in and like we just had Kenny Basil up there. 15 years, you want to go further, you've got to go do this and do that. Fix the underlying issue, otherwise you're always going to be in this cycle.
Rico, thanks very much indeed. Appreciate it. Rico Wojtulewicz from the National Federation of Builders.